a stunning turn of events that's sending shockwaves across the globe, Russian President Vladimir Putin is facing an economic catastrophe of historic proportions, a financial collapse so severe that even insiders are using the word bankruptcy to describe the situation unfolding inside the Kremlin. Once considered an untouchable fortress of power and control, this crisis didn't happen overnight. It's the result of years of aggressive foreign policy, sanctions from the West, and a growing reliance on diminishing resources. But what's truly jaw-dropping is how an American, yes, a deadly American strategy, rather than a person, has become the driving force behind this collapse, not with bombs or troops, but with calculated economic warfare, stealth finance, and strategic alliances. The American government, along with its NATO allies, launched a financial offensive that most of the world underestimated at first, using oil, currency manipulation, and tech sanctions like weapons. It slowly squeezed the Russian economy into a chokehold. The United States began by targeting Russia's energy exports, the backbone of its economy. By increasing its own oil production and flooding the global market, prices fell rapidly, slashing Russia's oil revenue, which accounts for nearly 50% of its national budget. Then came the restrictions on Western companies selling critical technology to Russia, cutting them off from semiconductor chips, aviation parts, and software updates. Suddenly, Russian industries started grinding to a halt. Planes were grounded, factories went silent, and key military hardware production slowed dramatically. While Putin tried to shift blame and rally national pride, calling it an economic war from the West, the cracks started to show. Inflation in Russia surged beyond 20%, wiping out savings overnight. Interest rates soared to curb the bleeding ruble, and citizens began panicking, withdrawing cash, buying gold, and fleeing the country when they could. The situation reached a new low when several oligarchs, once loyal to Putin and enriched by the state, began turning on him. Some fled to safe havens in Dubai or Turkey, others went silent, fearing the wrath of a leader now desperate and dangerous. What's more shocking is that several Russian banks defaulted on international debt, triggering panic in European financial markets and further isolating Moscow from the global economy. The final blow came from a lethal combination of cyber warfare and blockchain-based financial tracking, pioneered by US intelligence and Silicon Valley firms, making it nearly impossible for Russian elites to move money or hide it in offshore accounts. The wealth of the Russian elite, once protected in Swiss vaults and London real estate, was now exposed, frozen, or confiscated. Putin's inner circle began to fracture, some questioning his leadership behind closed doors, others allegedly plotting their own exit strategy. The world watched in disbelief as Putin's empire, long feared and seemingly invincible, began to disintegrate financially from the inside out. But it wasn't just about money, it was about power, image, and survival. And now the man who built a reputation on strength and control finds himself in the most vulnerable position of his rule. Reports from inside Moscow suggest Kremlin officials are running emergency simulations, looking for ways to stabilize the economy. But with the West tightening sanctions and domestic unrest growing, options are shrinking. Military spending cuts are now on the table, something unthinkable just a year ago. Meanwhile, protests have broken out in major Russian cities, not just against the war, but against rising food prices, disappearing jobs, and government lies. The deadly American strategy wasn't about boots on the ground. It was about targeting the bloodstream of Putin's power. Money. Now his approval ratings are dropping. The ruble is near worthless, and the once proud Russian economy is on the verge of default. As for Putin himself, insiders say he's increasingly isolated, relying only on a tight inner circle of yes-men while purging dissenters and intelligence officers suspected of betrayal. The message is clear. Even the most powerful autocrats can fall, not just by military defeat, but by economic ruin, one calculated move at a time. What happens next is uncertain. Will Putin double down and lash out, or will internal forces push him aside? Either way, the myth of invincibility is shattered, and the world may be witnessing the slow, dramatic bankruptcy of a leader who thought he was untouchable. And it all started with a deadly American playbook that rewrote the rules of modern warfare.